Evet, bir dakika içinde başlayacağız. Benden sonraki session'a dahil olurlar. Ben kısaca hem ben kendimden hem firmamızdan biraz bahsedeceğim. Bugünkü etkinlikten bahsedeceğim. Herkese merhabalar. Hoş geldiniz. Umarım iyi bir hafta geçiyordur hepiniz için. İsmim Necdet Apaydın. Profil İletişim Teknoloji'nde Genel Müdür Yardımcısı görevini yürütmekteyim. Bu sene tahminim 11. düzenlediğimiz, 11.sini düzenlediğimiz Profil Tech Days'e hoş geldiniz. Umuyorum herkes için verimli bir etkinlik olur. Teknoloji günlerine adını verdiğimiz bu etkinliklerle sizleri tedarikçilerimiz, çözüm ortaklarımız ve faaliyet gösterdiğimiz alanlarda dünyanın önde gelen teknoloji üreticileri buluşturuyoruz aslında. Bugünkü etkinliğimiz de bunlardan biri. Profil'in 80'i aşkın çözüm ortağından bir tanesi olan MediaKind ile düzenlediğimiz bu oturumda aşağıdaki ana başlıklar üzerine konuşacağız. Birincisi öncelikle MediaKind'in sunduğu ürün ve çözümlerle alakalı ürün yelpazesinden biraz bahsedeceğiz. Akabine iki tane önemli ürün ailesinden sizlere bilgiler aktaracağız. Bir tanesi Cygnus, Contribution ve Distribution tarafında yayın aktarım ve dağıtım çözümleriyle ilişkili ürün ailesinden bahsedeceğiz. Akabine Aquila, yayın, streaming ve on-demand çözümleri içeren daha çok IPTV, OTT platformlarla alakalı anahtar teslim çözüm sunan, bütün ekosistemi kapsayacak neredeyse. Bunlardan bahsedeceğiz. Biz 2020, özellikle 2022. yarısına itibaren de resmi channel partner olarak MediaKind'in tüm ürün yelpazesi ve çözümleriyle ilgili aktif projelerde yer alıyoruz. Dolayısıyla buradan sonraki, yani etkinlikten sonraki talepleriniz, görüşleriniz, takip ettiğiniz projeler gelecekte ya da yakın dönemde gerçekleşmeyi düşündüğünüz projelerle ilgili bizimle mutlaka irtibata geçmenizi rica ediyoruz. Ben etkinliği başlatmadan önce müsaadenizle çok kısa hem firmamızdan hem de güncel faaliyetlerimizden biraz bahsetmek istiyorum. Profe'nin teknoloji grubunu 3 alt segmentte anlatabiliriz. Birincisi iletişim teknolojileri, ikincisi savunma teknolojileri, üçüncüsü de uydu servisleri. Bu üç alt segmentte biz teknoloji grubumuzu tanımlıyoruz. Ayrıca grup bünyesinde ana iş kolumuz olan bu teknolojinin yanında inşaat, gıda sektörü ve yaşam bilimleri alanında da aktif faaliyetimiz devam ediyor büyüyerek. 25 yıldır haberleşme teknoloji alanında faaliyet gösteriyoruz ve sayısız projeye imza atmış bir entegratör olarak da birçoğunuz da bildiği üzere sektörün ihtiyaçlarına anahtar teslim altyapı çözümleri sunuyoruz bu faaliyet alanı içerisinde. Özellikle uydu ve kablosuz haberleşme sistemlerinin, bu sistemlere bağlı yer istasyonlarının ve ağların tasarımı, geliştirilmesi, sistem mühendisliği kabiliyetlerimizle kurulum, entegrasyon ve temini sağlanması konularında uzmanlığımız ve tecrübemizle uçtan uca hizmet veriyoruz. Bu sistemlerin içerisinde ihtiyaç duyulan tüm ana ve alt bileşenleri de gerek tedarikçilerimiz, gerekse kendi ürünlerimizle sağlıyoruz. Tabii Ar-Ge faaliyetlerimiz sayesinde ise bugün özellikle uydu haberleşme teknoloji alanında kullanılan birçok ürünü de yerleştirdik ve yerleştirmeye devam etmekteyiz. Bunları çok sık bir şekilde hem sosyal medya hesaplarımızdan hem web sayfalarımız üzerinden pazarlama aktivitelerimiz üzerinden sizlere duyuruyoruz. Birçoğunu da biliyorsunuzdur diye düşünüyorum. Bunlarla ilgili daha fazla detayı yine yenilenen bizim profen.com sayfamızı ziyaret ederek edinebilirsiniz. Profen.com sayfamız bütün grup için oluşturulan ve grubun altındaki bütün branş faaliyet alanlarımız, sektörlerimizle alakalı şirketleri barındıran detaylı bilgiler sunan grup sayfamız. Ayrıca iletişim tarafındaki çözümlerimiz de profentech.com, profen İngilizce tech.com sayfamıza girerek inceleyebilirsiniz. Halihazırda orada 300'e yakın ürün sergiliyoruz. Gittikçe de bu ürünleri ekleyerek yelpazeyi genişletiyoruz. Dolayısıyla bu ürünlere bakabilir, oradan detaylar edinebilir ve herhangi bir ürünün sayfasından veya sayfanın herhangi bir noktasından bizimle de irtibata geçebilirsiniz. Oradan formlar üretebilirsiniz. Bu formlar doğrudan bizim ekibimize düşüyor ve anlık olarak takip edilip size dönüş yapılıyor. Ziyaret etmenizi tavsiye ediyoruz. Savunma sanayindeki tüm vakıf kuruluşları, kamuya bağlı Ar-Ge enstitüleri, kamu ve özel operatörler, içerik ve servis sağlayıcılar, TV medya grupları, platform işletmecileri ile çok yakın ilişkiler içerisindeyiz. Onların ihtiyaçlarına az önce yukarıda bahsettiğim gibi gerek entegratör rolümüzde, gerekse bir yerinde Ar-Ge merkezi olmamızdan sebep araştırma ve geliştirme kabiliyetlerimize çözümler üretmeye ve hizmet vermeye devam ediyoruz. Araştırma geliştirme faaliyetlerimiz bizim için çok kıymetli. Bu ülkeye katkı sağladığımızı ve bu alanda bu katkıyı devamlı kılmaya da hedef olarak koyduğumuzu, vizyonumuzun en önemli ve misyonumuzun en önemli bir parçası olduğunu da belirtmek isterim. İletişim tarafının haricinde savunma teknoloji tarafında Profen savunma teknoloji olarak yine çok daha kritik ihtiyaçlara çözümler üretiyoruz. Bunlardan birkaçını stratejik ve taktik izleme sistemleri, keşif, gözetleme, algılama ve engelleme amaçlı sistemler, siber güvenlik çözümleri olarak sıralayabiliriz. Son olarak da üçüncü segmentimiz olarak Profen uydu servisleri firmamızdan bahsedebiliriz. Burada uydu üzerinden geniş bant ve ağ hizmetleri, veri hizmetleri sunmaktayız. Bunun yanında teleport hizmetleri ve çalıştığımız veri merkezleriyle birlikte ve operatörler, teleportlarla birlikte geniş bant ağ ihtiyaçlarına uçtan uca çözümler getirmekteyiz, sunmaktayız. Biliyorsunuz Profen grubu olarak Konya'da önemli bir yatırımımız var. Profen Konya Yer İstasyonu, Gateway Yer İstasyonu. Burada irili ufaklı işte 9 metreden 11 metreye kadar büyük çaplı sabit anten, hareketli sabit anten sistemlerimiz var. Hem yayıncılık sektörüne hem iletişim tarafında haberleşmeyle alakalı tüm ihtiyaçlara buradan çözüm üretiyoruz. Aynı zamanda operasyon olarak zaten İngiliz bir uydu operatörüne orada hizmet veriyoruz. Uzun bir sürede orada hizmet vermeye devam edeceğiz. Burası aynı zamanda hem bir yer istasyonu yerleşkesi hem de bir gateway. Çünkü uydu ile karasal ağları birbirine bağlayan, işte İstanbul üzerinden yurt dışına yedekli gigabit devrelerle aktarım yapabilecek kabiliyetlere sahip. İçerisinde oldukça geniş bir veri merkezi alanımız var. Kabinet kapasitemiz oldukça yüksek. Arazi olarak genişleme müsait bir bölge. Dolayısıyla Konya Yer İstasyonu ve Gateway yerleşkemiz üzerinden hem geniş bant hem yayıncılık teknolojileri hem savunma alanındaki ihtiyaçlara cevap verebilecek kapasitemiz mevcut. Daha fazla uzatmadan ben Mediakent firmasından bugün bizlerle birlikte olan Nayla ve Mete sözü bırakmak istiyorum. Etkinlik sırasında sorularınızı ekranın altında görünen QA alanına yazabilir ve iletebilirsiniz. Lütfen sorularınızı iletmekten çekinmeyin. Ayrıca etkinliğin sonunda bir anketimiz olacak. Genel bir anketimiz. Buna vereceğiniz cevaplar da bizim için çok önemli. Geri bildirimlerinizi esirgemezseniz çok memnun oluruz. Zannedersem etkinlik sırasında da sunumun içeriği, etkinliğin içeriğiyle alakalı bazı kısa anketlerle karşılaşabilirsiniz pop-up şeklinde. Bunlara da cevap verirseniz memnun oluruz. Hepinize tekrar hoş geldiniz diyorum. Teşekkürlerimi sunuyorum. Naila, I hand over to you. Thank you very much. Welcome again. Today, Naila and Matt are together with us. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello.
We can start. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Najdat. Hello, merhaba, everyone. Thank you all for attending, and big thanks to Profen for organizing this technology event today. First of all, I would like to introduce you very briefly to Mediakind. My name is Naila Nassar, as Najdat introduced me. I'm responsible for business development for channel partners in Middle East and Africa. And I will be The agenda for today is welcome and MediaKind introduction, a brief one, and then we're going to go through the portfolio overview where Matt will going to go through it for mainly contribution and Aquila streaming and broadcast. And please feel free, to ask questions later on. And if we don't have time to, let's say, answer all the questions, we are always available offline or later on. You can contact Profen and we can answer all your questions. MediaKind, for those who don't know MediaKind, it's the new brand and the new name of Ericsson Media Solutions. I think you knew it before, and it is a new identity. And it became a company on its own in February 2019, almost two years ago. It is still owned by Ericsson and partially owned by one equity company. So what makes us unique, first of all, our heritage and established heritage, because MediaKind is like a group of companies, most probably Tandberg, Envivio, Azuki, or Fabrics, and other companies. We have a global R&D presence, as you see, in 5-6 countries, in the UK, France, US, India, and China. And we have more than 1,000 engineers working on our technologies, and we invest a lot also in our R&D, because we want our customers to have the best, let's say, products and the best solutions, best quality. We are well known for our also best quality. What also makes us unique is that our established heritage and the forward thinking experts who equipped organizations like yours with end-to-end technology solutions for media of all kinds. So that's why I'm going to go just to give you a brief idea of our solutions. They are divided into like 4 main pillars. The first group would be contribution and distribution, which we will go in more details on this today. And it is our solutions and our products for contribution, distribution, and 360 events. The other division would be consumer delivery, and it is our product called Aquila Streaming on Demand and Broadcast. And the consumer experience, which is, let's say, mainly it is dedicated for big telcos solutions. It is regarding our media room, Media First, and the Prisma solutions. And the last pillar, and which is, I think, very important also, is our services and support organization. We have a dedicated team of engineers and support teams and services who are, let's say, supporting big projects. We have 24/7 support, let's say, capability, and this to help us definitely give the high-end projects and deliver high-end quality projects to our customers. I will go just through the next few slides. We have more than 2,000 deployments of contribution and distribution. We have more than 2,000 customers all over the world using our contribution and distribution products. Regarding the consumer delivery, we have more than 100 deployments, and we have won lots of awards in the cloud processing and streaming. We are the first cloud DVR deployments. We are also partnered with 3 public cloud platforms, which are Microsoft, Google, and AWS. Regarding the consumer experience, we are #1 top-rated IPTV experiences in the US. More than 75 customers and almost 40 million, let's say, subscribers or set-top boxes, and 19 million subscribers all over the world. And our services and support organization is, let's say, we are very flexible. We have various levels of support which will cater the various needs of our customer depending on depending on the project size and depending on the customer needs, etc. So we have 3 levels, let's say, of support. One dedicated for, let's say, boxes. One is dedicated more for bigger projects or medium-sized project, and the highest level will be dedicated to bigger projects. And we have also, let's say, more than 300 services customers using our professional services all over the world. I will hand it now over to Matt, who will, as I said, we will go through 2 of our big pillars today. And in case you are interested to any other of our solutions which are not, let's say, covered today, please feel free to let us know and we can dedicate another session for that. So Matt, please.
Morning. So hi everyone. So yes, I'm going to talk through our Cygnus and Aquila solutions this morning. Cygnus, as Naila said, is our contribution and primary distribution platform. When we're talking primary distribution, we're talking from the programmer out to the opcos, the broadcasters. The contribution obviously coming in from remote events, so stadiums, news vans, from particular events that could be out there, or from remote studios. So here we have a heritage with the AVP 2000 and the RX 8200, which are well known in the market. This is where we're typically doing HD or UHD in the AVP. And we're bringing to market CE1, which are new software based. I'll go into more detail in a bit, and the RX1, which has already been out on the market for about a year. So if we look at the family here, we've got, starting off the top left, so the AVP 2000, the 3000 is our DSNG encoder. So this adds a modulator into it, and the CE1. On the right-hand side, we have the RX 8200, the RX 8300, and the RX1. So these are, on the left, the AVPs, the contribution encoders. These are all for super low latency. We can do UHD, HD. We can get 4 UHD per chassis, or sorry, no, it's jumping around. Could you move it back one, Naila? Thank you. So the AVP 2004 UHDs, or 16 HDs in one rack unit, and the AVP 3000 will add in a modulator for DSNG requirements. The right-hand side, the RX 8200. We go on to the next slide, please. Sorry, my controls aren't working, Naila. So this is our very well-known IRD that's deployed. We've got over 60,000 deployments worldwide. It's a mixture of SD, HD, MPEG-2, MPEG-4, or HEVC capabilities, 42, 10-bit, and it can take satellite, IP, or ASI. We've added BIS-CA to it last year. But this is really now getting to the limit of what it can do technically. So if you've got SD, HD, up to 8 HEVC requirements for single channel, then this is still a very, very valid product. But if we want to start going on to add some of the newer technologies, so SRT, for example, or higher density, then we're talking about our RX1. So this is a new platform. It was released last year. It's built on COTS hardware. So this is a hardened chassis. It's not just an off-the-shelf box. It is actually hardened. It's been through a lot of testing to make sure it's reliable and suitable to go into the OB vans. As you know, that type of environment tends to be very rugged. So they've been put through their tests for vibration, for heat, even for the physical capabilities of having other boxes stacked on top of it, obviously to make sure that it's sturdy enough to be used in these environments. The RX1 has, as different inputs, we have either IP or ST2110, or we could have our quad RF input, so DVPS, S2, S2X. We have capability of up to 2 CI boards, each one of which with 2 slots for CAN modules. And then we can add in SDI for outputs, that could be 3G SDI, 12G SDI. We have the ST2110 option too. That's using a Mellanox board. And this is, honestly, this is the platform where we'll be adding new functionality to as we go forwards. You'll also see that it's up to 4 HDD codes today, or 1 UHD. So we're starting to add better density to these 1RU units. SRT is quite an exciting way forward. So we're starting to look more and more, or rather the market's looking more and more into different ways to distribute that content. Having backup links for satellite, or even trying to reduce the amount of satellite that you're using and using the fixed IP infrastructure if possible with SRT, which will provide you AES 128-bit encryption by standard for your contribution links. Also included in this unit, we actually developed BIS2 for the EBU on this unit, and it's obviously got the BIS V1 and V2 availability today too. Director 128 is the other solution that we sell with the platform. Director 128 gives you the option of over-air control. So this would allow you to control your remote RX1, be able to push down new software uploads, and to be able to enable or disable the content protection as needed. Okay, so as you can see, the C1, so this is being officially launched at the moment. We have some units already deployed today, which we've been doing testing in the field. The C1 you'll see looks very similar to the RX1. It's because we're using the same chassis there. So it's the same COTS platform, it's hardened, dual PSUs, dual fans. This chassis you'll see us using more and more in different appliances. It's also, as a side note, the same hardware we're now using for our software MUX. So the C1, the RX1, and MKSP will all use this baseline hardware, but with a different combination of boards, depending on what you want to do. So the C1 is initially launched with HD and UHD. We have an accelerated board in there, and we'll be releasing software encode later on this year to get down to lower resolutions. So at the moment, UHD 10-bit HEVC. We've got ST2110 output with the Mellanox card again. Encryption, the same. If you look, it's actually very similar. It follows in line with the RX1. As we're adding features into one, then we're trying to match them on the other side, so you'll always have the encode, decode capabilities in the same platforms. Again, here, SRT, this becomes more and more important in terms of contribution when we start looking at deploying this out further out into the field. And being able to use internet infrastructure or IP infrastructure to be able to send this securely to your programmer main head end. Brings me to the C-Mini. So C-Mini is a new product which we've launched this year, and this is really for I'd say pop-up events. You could use this for sports stadiums. It could be used for college sports, that type of event. It's meant to be a very small, lightweight. You can see from the picture, little encoder which can be shipped out easily to events. It can be pre-configured. It's really very, very simple to use. It's got a web UI that you go in and it can come with a bunch of presets. You can modify those, create your own. We've got SDI inputs or HDMI inputs, and we have TS or SRT or RTMP Zixi has also been enabled. And at the moment, this is being launched as an HD or SD encoder, but we do have plans to bring a 4K software upgrade out as we go further down the line. One of the other areas where you'll see this, we've done some trials with e-gaming, so esports, where each of these devices was actually shipped out to the gamers, and then they were fed back to the main studio. You can see on this next slide an idea where you could have both the minis and the C1R, the RX1 sent out, and you have the mini which would be sending directly out to Facebook or YouTube via the RTMP, RTMPS, or back to your central location where you could have a RX1 set up as a network adapter, so receiving all of the SRT feeds and then either just transferring them as TS over into a distribution head end or into the live production, or else decoding down to SDI, which is going to be available a bit later on this year. The C Mini, again, it really is more for events, for pop-up events. It's a lower tier, but it is a very valid product, and it's an interesting concept, I think, that we'll start to see deployed out more and more. AWS have their version of this, so I think one of the strong points here with the C Mini is that we're not linked into any particular cloud. You could use the C Mini with a solution from MediaKind, or you could use it with a solution from somewhere else. We can plug it in straight into an SRT hub, which you could deploy in GCP or in Azure, or even in AWS or Alibaba or any one of the cloud providers. This slide is just supposed to show a selection of contribution wins that we've had over the last few years. So Discovery, obviously a well-known content provider. So we deployed the RX1 with the UHD decode. For the Olympics, obviously we're present there. It's just to give an example of some of the wins we've had recently. When we go on to distribution, here I'm not going to spend too much time because the same building blocks are those that we'll see in the Aquila solution. So our Cygnus distribution is now based on our encoding live and our stream processing product. But here it's deployed typically as appliance-based, so using our G8 1056 hardware, and it would typically be controlled by nCompass, which for those of you that are familiar with Ericsson and indeed Tambo before them, will know the nCompass control platform. It's been around for a very long time. It's got a lot of integrations into or including SDI switches and routers, a lot of the Cisco IP infrastructure, Juniper, HP. It's a solid network management solution for an encoding head end. This last slide in the Cygnus section really aims to look at where could we use RX1 in a distribution, or C1 RX1 in a distribution environment. And here I've mentioned a few times SRT. It really is now considered to be a strong alternative for distribution or primary distribution of content. It could be used as a backup link, or it could be used in parallel with the satellite. And see, there's a poll that's come up on the screen at the moment. So we'd be really interested to find out if you have any plans at the moment of using SRT, Zixi, RIST, if there are any other technologies that you see in the IP infrastructure for this type of distribution, or maybe you see sticking with satellite and that could still be a valid option. Would be really interested to get your feedback on this. Okay, so excuse me. I'm going to go to the Aquila solutions now. So when we're talking about the Aquila solutions, we're talking about, that's interesting, SRT. Okay, very good. it's good to know that we've actually deployed the right thing then. So we have SRT deployed in RX1, in CE1, we have it in the CE Mini, and we can even deploy the RX1 just as a network adapter. So you could do SRT to TS or TS to SRT, or very shortly SRT to SDI. So hopefully that's a product that could be of interest to many of you out there. So going back to Aquila, Aquila is the combination of our products. So we take our encoding live, encoding on demand, packaging, streaming solutions, and we wrap those together to build our Aquila streaming or Aquila broadcast products. So in the case of Aquila streaming, we're going to be talking about encoding live with the packaging solution. When we're talking about Aquila broadcast, it will be encoding live with our stream processing or multiplexing solution. When we're talking on demand will be a mixture of encoding on demand plus the packaging, obviously. All of this is controlled or operated and managed via something which we call controller. And depending on the size of the deployment, we can deploy each of these units either as standalone or as a compact deployment where we'd have controller deployed on the same hardware as some of the encoding or the packaging or the stream processing applications. Or we can deploy it as a fully distributed solution, and that tends to be for larger head ends, where the controller would be given its own infrastructure to run on. Controller is, we'll see it later, but controller is our interface into any of the software solutions today. So whether it be through our UI, so we do have a UI which we're proposing for it, or as an API call, because everything is accessible via an API call. We don't need to use the UI. You could integrate directly with your existing platforms with a data miner from Skyline, for example, or even just an existing platform that you have, which you can make REST calls from. Then you could theoretically manage and control the whole of the platform. So as we go on, encoding live is obviously the core of this when we're talking about encoding. Whether it be for your broadcast with your VBR, or whether it be for your CBR, OTT, or IPTV or streaming solutions. So the slide aims to give a view of, or a functional view of what is actually inside our encoding live solution. So that covers everything realistically from the input, the drivers for the SDI, whether it be physical SDI, SDI over IP, whether we're talking about the new ST2110 interfaces, so that's 25 gigabit per second today. That's shortly going to be moving to 40, and there are even ST2110 interfaces with 100 gigabits per second. I don't think we quite need that in encoding yet, but you never know. When we move all to UHD, maybe we will. But still, certainly the 25 gigabit per second input is necessary today with UHD and uncompressed format. As an encoder, you're taking in through the input, and having to do a decode, whether it's raw or whether it's coming in as lightly compressed or even fully compressed as an MPEG-2 stream, and you want to normalize it through to the output as an MPEG-4 or HEVC, or why not in the short future as a VVC stream. These are all things which will be possible within encoding live. Today, as codecs go, we support MPEG-2, H.264, and HEVC. We have full HDR support, so we can convert from HLG 10 to PQ10 or HDR10. We have Dolby Vision 8.1 and Dolby Vision 5. On the audio side, we've got AAC, HEAC. We've just recently integrated AC4. We have the possibility for blackout, alternate content. This can be based on SCSI messages, or further down using ESAM messages, maybe with a packager. And all of this, so it all wraps together to be able to provide your broadcasts, your VBR streams. Maybe it's going StatMux into a multiplexer, or your packaging, or even just plain multicast for your IPTV streams. All of this, again, controlled via controller, which is our controller monitoring solution. This is really the key component of any broadcast or IPTV or OTT, or even on-demand encoding. So anything where you're maybe encoding all of your VOD files. Whether it's for primary distribution, so they typically use much less compression, or whether it's really for distribution down to the customer, so as the telco or the cable company, the last mile encoding. Different implementations, different aspects of deploying this will allow different functionality. So I'd say one of the USPs of MediaKind is that we do have our own in-house codec team. So these guys just work on codecs. That's all they do. We have the ambition, the gain, the hope. We normally pretty much steadily every release have a 10% gain. So every major release to date has been typically every 8 to 10 months for a major release. And over that time, we're working on MPEG-2, on H.264, on HEVC, but also that same team is also working on the next generation codec, so EVVC, VVC, and we'll start seeing some of that being available as demo platforms as we go on. So this brings us to our second poll. We'd be really interested to find out, do you have plans to upgrade, to deploy HEVC for your existing SD and HD channels? Maybe they're to reduce the bandwidth that's needed. Will you only deploy HEVC for UHD channels? So you'll end up having a mix of MPEG-2, H.264, and UHD maybe? Or will you wait for future codecs such as VVC, which are looking like having a major improvement on the bandwidth that's required, and also probably less problematic with the royalties that are needed to be paid? Or other, maybe decided that you're just going to stay with what you've got at the moment. Anyway, would be really interested to find out. So if you could click away and let us know what your plans are in regards to codecs going forwards. Thank you. So, other, okay. So I'd say more sticking with what you've got today. Interesting. Okay, so Aquila Broadcast. So we've talked a little bit about encoding live. We've talked a little bit about the stream processor. This diagram, to all intents and purposes, very similar to the diagram we saw in the distribution section, in the Cygnus section. It's made up of encoding on one side. You see, we can support 1+1 or N+M, and even mixed redundancy schemes inside the Aquila Broadcast solution. The multiplexing would normally deploy that as a pure 1+1. And with the stream processor, we have the possibility to have ASI or IP. With the encoding, again, it's all of the interfaces we talked about before, the SDI or ST2110 or IP input, IP output always. And this can be controlled either through controller, and we could do that as a specific controller deployment, or through Encompass. So that could be more on the distribution side with Cygnus. With Aquila Broadcast, typically that would be through a controller interface. So we'll see that a little bit later on. The advantage that has is that we can start playing with the Aquila Broadcast solution, so it can be deployed on appliances, or it can be deployed in private or public cloud. So we have the possibility today to do full stack marks in GCP environments. We're actually running a few proof of concepts at the moment with some major vendors in EMEA and in North American region for full stack marks in a public cloud environment. Obviously, then you need to get the content up into the platform and back out again. So there, again, it's things like SRT would come into this. The stream processor obviously links off to different conditional access systems. So today we're supporting DVB CSA v1, v2 for Civil Crypt, and we will have v3 support very shortly this year. An interesting use case that we recently, I think it was during last year, we had a customer who had been happily deployed on our legacy hardware AVP 4000 encoders. And they were coming to end of life of the product based on the dates that they'd bought them. And their mandate to us was, can you give the same or better with your new software encoder, so with the Aquila Broadcast solution? So we worked very closely with them and basically put together a solution. So running on Encoding Live, running on the G8 COT servers that we use. So there's Intel-based hardware. Work with them, working on its up encoding profile. So that's the highest level of quality that you can get. Work with them to build up this equivalent with Aquila Broadcast, and actually ended up being able to put an additional 3 entertainment channels into the same TS that they'd been previously using with our legacy hardware solution at the same perceived level of quality. So no picture quality loss, no reduction in perceived quality, and actually managed to be able to put an additional 3 channels per TS for them into that deployment. So what did that actually result in? That resulted in them being able to reduce by 2 transponders, so that's a significant amount of money, whilst having the same channel count, in fact also adding a UHD HEVC channel to that channel count. So adding a UHD channel, reducing 2 transponders, I think economically the platform pretty much paid for itself within a year. So they have happily deployed this and have migrated from the legacy AVPs over to our Aquila Broadcast solution. Excuse me. So Aquila Streaming, very much the same picture. So again, we're using our Encoding Live here. And again, this can be deployed as 1+1 or N+M. And the output here would typically be your packager. So here again, like the stream processor, packager would normally be deployed in a 1+1 scenario. Here, we would normally be pushing off to load balancer or out onto customer CDN. And again, this platform can be deployed on premise, so we could deploy it on its own appliances, so the G8 1056 series, or we could deploy it into private data cloud. So maybe you've got your own, I don't know, your own HP or Lenovo or Cisco infrastructure. We could quite happily deploy it onto that. Some benchmarking obviously to be needed, or even into GCP. So or GCP or AWS or Alibaba. We have possibility of public cloud. The whole of the Aquila solution is cloud native. We took the decision a couple of years ago to rewrite or to rebuild all of our software. We'll take it from our classic appliance-based solutions and to redesign it as a microservices-based architecture. And you'll see that today. I mean, actually, it's been the last couple of versions. So version 10, version 11, we're up to version 13 at the moment. From version 10, it was already a microservices-based solution. and during this year, we'll be moving to a fully containerized Kubernetes deployment as well. So that from the end of the year, that will be available for broadcast and for streaming. So here in the Aquila streaming, again, we can use this for IPTV, we can use this for your OTT. We support HLS and Dash smooth streaming. Would interface off with the different DRM players, so whether it's a Widevine or a Verimatrix or a Fairplay, all of this can be provided from the underlying platform. One of the things we've strived to do with the solutions is find ways to improve the quality of the solutions and really make the most of the deployment. So what you're seeing here is something we've introduced, which is called constant video quality. Typically in the past with IPTV or with, more to the point, OTT platforms, it was all based on CBR technology. Not like in broadcast. Broadcast, typically we're using VBR, so we're making the most of the bandwidth available with StatMux. So with OTT, we've tried to do the same thing, or not tried, we've done the same thing. We've implemented what we're calling constant video quality. So we set parameters in the encoder to basically always give as close as possible the same MOS score, so that we're looking for the level of quality that we want. We're setting a maximum bit rate, and we're saying to the encoder, you manage it from here, a bit like we would do with the StatMux solution in your broadcast deployments. And what we're showing here on the screen at the moment is, you saw there was a slate first. So if we look on the left-hand side, we can see that the bandwidth is typically around 8 megabits. Doesn't matter what's being shown on the screen. We're staying at roughly 8 megabits per second all the way through. So that would be your typical streaming solution or your IPTV platform. On the right-hand side here, we're showing with CVQ. And you can see, depending on the complexity of the image, that you're using less or more bandwidth. So what you have right in this first section is a slate. So that there's really no movement. It's pretty much a still image. So we're really using hardly any bandwidth at all. As we go through to the trailer, you saw that the utilization went up. Here with Bugs Bunny, sorry, we're moving on again, but with the animation, again, not too much bandwidth really needed. We're under 4 meg. And as we've gone through onto the Formula 3, now we're seeing that it's really taking up to its maximum bit rate possible. But it's adapting based on the complexity of the images that are being presented to it. So here, I think we had a customer, it was over a 24 or 48 hour period. They worked out that they were getting effectively a 40% reduction in storage and delivery costs that were needed based on the reduction in bandwidth, and therefore the reduction in the amount of time that you needed to actually store that into your catch-up TV platforms. The converged head end, so this really depicts the next step on. So having your typical Aquila broadcast or having your typical Aquila streaming solution, more and more today we're seeing the need for the same operator deploying a mixture of those technologies. So someone who has typically let's say a StatMux solution deployed, or has a multiplex, even if it's CBR multiplex solution deployed, a cable operator, for example, wanting to add an OTT solution to their platform. And here what we're showing is that from the same infrastructure, we can do that. In terms of our products, we call this the Aquila converged solution. So it's really when you take the premium version of either Aquila streaming or the premium version of Aquila broadcast, you have the right to also deploy, included in the same license price, either the broadcast or the OTT solution. So let's say you have a broadcast solution today. You could theoretically add on the OTT service sitting on top of your existing platform. Obviously, additional infrastructure may be needed for the packages, and additional infrastructure may be needed for more encoding, depending on the profiles that you're going to add. But what we're trying to show here is that from the same infrastructure, you could provide both your broadcast and your streaming solutions. So this poll that's up now, we'd be very interested to see if you or your customers have plans to migrate to a converged headend. Is it something that would interest you, being able to share the same platform and not have them segregated into different user groups, having the same infrastructure to serve both broadcast and OTT services? So is this something that you're interested? Is it something you've got plans to do in the next 12 months? Is it something that maybe, yes, 18 to 24 months or not interested? Or even, would you like just more information? We're very happy to set up other sessions with our partners, Profin, to come and talk to you in more detail about any of this. So please let us know, and hopefully we can talk about this in more detail going forwards. Okay, brilliant, excellent. So we look forward to additional meetings with Profan and to see how we can help you deploy this going forwards. So an example, we actually have this with AT&T where they do have this deployed today. So they are sharing the same infrastructure for both the StatMux and their package solution. The interesting about AT&T is that it's already running in a Kubernetes environment. So it's already deployed in containers. One of the really important things for us was to simplify the operation of the platform. Very typically, when you have an encoder and you have a MUX and you have a packager, maybe you have a network adapter hub or any of these other components that tend to make up these overall solutions, you start having all of these different interfaces and having to work out, okay, this operations team knows how to manage that, this other operations team has ideas on that. What we really try to make one UI that's the same, whether you're configuring our encoder for broadcast, for on-demand, for streaming, whether it's going into the packager, or whether it's going into the stream processor. So we've gone from these individual UIs from our classic architecture through to what we're calling controller for our Aquila architecture. As a side note, if you start using our RX1 or our C1, you'll see the same interface. We've built it in a way that even for standalone products, you can have the same user interface, the same way of accessing, the same API calls to a standalone product or to something which is more centrally managed through our controller platform. So one of I think one of the super important things here is that we've built a UI. It is what it is. It's what we think is important to be able to configure, control, and do a high level of monitoring on the solution deployed. For that, certainly you'll start seeing the containerized that we have things like Prometheus and Grafana and Kibana already pre-integrated with the platform. And when we're talking about a containerized solution, then we will deploy all of that as key components of it. But at the same time, anything that you can do through our user interface, you can do directly via an API call. So you could, in theory, create a template, upload a template, reconfigure a channel, add a channel, drop a server, start up another appliance. All of that could be done remotely via API calls to the platform. And it is controller that you will use to get through to whether it's the encoder or the stream processor or the packager or whatever else we're going to deploy out there. This is basically, sorry, it's more of the same. It's showing it's just the REST API as the access point to it. And these are some examples of the screenshots. So if we have some time when we finish, then I'll go back and quite happily walk through an example of a deployment that we have in GCP using this, where we can see each of the different components. So really now to try and wrap this up, the portfolio that we have, the solution that we have, we have re-architected the whole thing. So it's now built in a microservices architecture. The important message I want to try and get across here is that it really is cloud native. It's built so that we can deploy the same software, whether it's on an appliance, so that could be as a standalone encoder. It could be in your private data center. So maybe you've got your own private cloud infrastructure and you don't want to add in third-party hardware into there. Maybe you have available resources and you want to run it all from the same VMware or OpenStack environment. So that, again, we could deploy straight onto that. Or you could run in the public and private cloud, public clouds. So GCP, AWS, Azure, it's the same piece of software that's going to run across each of these infrastructures. We also have a bundled SaaS offer. So that could be an idea maybe for pop-up events or some of these shorter 2, 3, 4 week events where you don't want to roll out a new platform, but you do really want to be able to offer this to your subscribers. So here we have a SaaS offering, which could be of interest going forwards. But in all of these cases, it really is, it's the same software. The way the microservices architecture has been done, we deploy the encoding live software either onto appliance or into private or into public cloud. The appliance space is where you'll also see products such as our C1 and RX1, where even if the software is built in a way that it could be deployed into private cloud or public cloud, these are typically more appliance-based solutions, or at least we feel that our customers are more familiar or happier with it in a appliance-based solution. So there we would deploy it on our M1 server, the hardened COTS chassis, which we showed you earlier, or depending on the need, it could be deployed into to private cloud, depending on the interfaces and how we're going to get the content in and out of that solution. These are all software-based solutions, so this is something which is a message I want to try and get across. So really to finish off, appliances, RX1, C1, even encoding live, we could deploy as an appliance on a G8. It is cloud-native software. Aquila broadcast and streaming can be deployed either physically, locally on your own hardware, on hardware MediaKind can support and supply, or into a public cloud environment, and as a service solution offering. Okay, and with that, I've got to the end of the presentation. So very happy to take any questions that might be out there.
Thank you very much, Matt. I think we have some time. If you have any questions, we please answer. Please type on QA section. Eğer sorularınız varsa alabiliriz şimdi. Biraz daha vaktimiz var gibi.
Or if you'd like, I'd be very happy to walk through the controller interface if we have time.
Yeah, we have time. I think there's no question at that moment. So yeah, we have plenty of time actually, half an hour. So it is beneficial if we can walk us. We can walk through the UI of the new controller.
Okay. So I'm going to stop my video. I have upstream bandwidth issues of sharing screen and video at the same time. Sure. So I will stop my video and I will start sharing my screen for this. Okay.
But okay. What is the question, Najdat?
No, there's no question.
We have a question. What is it? Yeah.
So let me share my screen.
You want me to stop sharing, Matt? Yeah.
Please, yeah.
Okay. Let me just stop sharing. Okay.
Okay.
We're okay.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so what I'm showing here is actually an example of our controller interface. So this is the main splash screen. This is where you'd land when you come to our platform. And we've tried to make this as, sorry, hide the Zoom things. Try to make this as clean and as easy to understand what's going on when you land on the platform. So we've got an alarm section here where you can see the amount of critical, major or minor. Luckily in this case we have no alarms, which is good. And then we'll see on each of the screens that up in the top right hand corner, we always have an indicator in case any alarm should be raised. Quick access, we can see the services that are deployed, the servers that we have available, and this is templates which we can use to create, once we're happy with the configuration, we can create a template and then that can be applied to each of the new services that we want to launch. So if we go into servers, we can see what is the actual hardware that's deployed today. This is actually running on GCP, so we're talking about nodes or GCP nodes here. These are sized independently depending on what we need. So the encoding, I think, is with 96 core large nodes. The controller is a lot less. I think they're probably 24 or 32 core. But it's a different. What I'm trying to say here is we have different hardware that's being managed underneath all of this. So we can quickly see we have encoding live 1 and 2, packager 1 and 2. We have what we call our multicast unicast converter. This is how we deal with getting multicast content up into the cloud and how we move it around inside the cloud. And we have our controller, so the interface that we're using here. Inside each of the servers, you get some basic level of statistics that you can have access to and see very quickly. So you can see, am I having CPU utilization issues? Is there a problem with the memory? What about the disk I/O? So it's just a really to have a feeling of where we are, what's going on. Is everything good? If I've been having any problems, you can quickly go through and see on each of the servers. This is on Encoding Live 2. What the status is. So you can see that the CPU usage is going between 37 and 44%, depending on the complexity of the content. Back to home. From here, we can also go in to see any of the services. So this is where we would configure any of the services, be it encoding or packaging. So if we go into one of the encoders, go in and see. It's nice, clean, easy to configure. We have our general information, which is where we're going to deal with things like dual output prevention, i.e. not letting two outputs go out with the same configuration. It's very important when we're doing things like MGP between two different encoders in a 1+1 environment. So this is where you connect the two encoders to stop the dual output at the same time. Input, it's obviously where we're going to configure how we're getting it. In this case, we're getting it from an MPEG-2 source. Theoretically, we could get it from SDI or an RTMP or ST2110 interface. The type of redundancy, if we've set it up as a redundant solution, And then here, for example, we're putting in the sources, so it's typical multicast addresses, ports, and we can see briefly what's actually in the TS that we're putting in. So the audio, the different PIDs, and if there are any subtitles or any additional information. We go through to our media processing. So this is where we can add things like pre-filters. We can do some basic adjustments, so cropping the overscan, where we can modify some of the color charts should we need to. We have freeze frame, so if we detect freeze frame, what do we do? Different audio processing, through to the encoding tab, where here you can see we've got the ABR content set up. So this is our different encoding profiles. We're going from a 1080 through 50 frames a second, down to a QVGA, HVGA at 25 frames a second, with the different audios. And here, I mean, there's no subtitling on this, but this is typically where we'd configure the subtitles and the blackout configuration. So channels where we expect to have blackout or alt content, maybe due to local rights with, I don't know, football matches, for example. It's a typical case where I live in Spain, where blackout is needed because a region, a national TV channel can't put a football match in a region where it's that local team playing. So, for example, they have to do an alternate content. And this is where we would set it up and set up what's the trigger, what's the SCSI 35 message that we're going to be waiting for, and what should we do in that case? Do we go to an alternate piece of content, or do we go to just a black screen saying this content is unavailable in this region, and we splice in further down the content that's appropriate for there? You've also got basic things like logo insertion, which can be done from here too. Output, this is where we, in a stream, in an OTT solution, we bundle together the different profiles and their audios. So here we can see going out on it's the same IP address, but the different ports depending on the profile. And then we do have advanced parameters in case we're trying to do any fine tuning or tweaking that's needed for specific country implementations. So the platform is super flexible in that case. Packaging, again, so it's very much the same type of thing. We're going in through, sorry, I've gone into the encoding there. It's going through the same. So we create a catalog, and inside the catalog, we're going to decide whether it's going to be an HLS stream or whether it's going to be Dash, or here we're showing we're doing CMAF, so this is CMAF with Dash. It's where you're going to set up all of the basics for each of your channels. If you've got any modifications to the manifest that need to be done, here, for example, here we're looking at how many GOPs per segment or segments per playlist. So all of this can be modified quickly and easily. When we go into the packager, so let's go in. So here we're going to set up what's the standard we're using, what's the GOP duration, where are the publishing points, are we going to be doing low latency? In this case, it's actually talking about direct path, which I'd really like to talk with some of you about in the future if you have any OTT requirements. Direct path is one of, I'd say, the unique functions of MediaKind, where we can do broadcast low latency in an OTT solution. So we have ways of really reducing the latency that's inherent in OTT, in this case by co-locating the encoder and the packager together and really working hand in hand with the buffers and the caches in between your encoder and your packager, to reduce that really to the minimum in order to avoid having these horrible delays between what you have in broadcast and what you have in OTT. So again, here it's showing it's a clean, clear, relatively easy way to configure any of this. I'd say the last thing we could probably look at in here. Well, no, so let me go back into one of the encoding profiles. You can see quickly from the top here, we also have access directly to alarms. So if I click on this, we'll go, excuse me, sorry. We'll have the access directly to alarms relevant to this particular encoder. And also we'll have the stats here, so we can go through and have directly into the statistics if we're noticing that something's maybe going on. So here, for example, we can see all of the different profiles that have been configured, what we're actually receiving them at, the different bit rates for each of these profiles. And also here we can see which are the outputs. Okay, so where are the manifests? What's it being dropped off at? Where's the what are the URLs that are being deployed? So here, obviously, the host. You'd normally have in here the IP for the output. Alarms. Here, we've got 2 active alarms at the moment. Okay, so we've got synchronization issue. Okay, so I'll have to come back in and look at this in a bit. But we can see the history of what's been going on, what errors have been seen, what's happened to them, were they minor, were they major. We have the possibility also to override. If we know that there's something that's going on that typically we pick up and flag it as being a major, we can also turn that around. If we know that it's just an issue because, I don't know, for example, we're doing a loop file, so we're getting CC errors, we can choose to ignore that level of severity because it's a known defect on that particular channel. So all of this is a possibility, and also here to trigger failover. Should one of these errors trigger a failover, yes or no, to automate it. And I'm not sure if these ones are set up. Let's have a quick look. I don't have the user inter. So this it's saying we can add in external links through to. In this case, it's Grafana, but we could have Kibana or RabbitMQ for the different message queues. If that, what are we using? If you had specific other external applications, you could also add those in here. We can just configure it to add in an external link. So there you go, external links, and off you go. You just add in what it should be, whether it should be embedded or whether it should open up another window. And it's also here we're going to do the SNMP notifications, and what else we've got, an admin. The possible for user management, so we can create different groups and add users into those different groups with different rights. So you could have an operator only being able to see what was going on, or you could have an admin, someone being able to actually control and configure the appliances. And that really, that's it with the user interface. It's very simple. I think it's very clean, and anything that you can see that can be done here via a click can be done via an API call. Should that be a preferred way of doing things? Okay, so that's the end of my section, really.
Thank you, Matt, for this user interface introduction for the new controller. Evet, sorunuz varsa cevaplamaktan memnuniyet duyarız. Buraya kadar anlatılanlarla ilgili ya da başka aklınıza gelen, takılan ne varsa.
Well, thank you. Is it? Are we closing or?
Yeah, I think we can close. There is no question waiting anymore. Çok teşekkürler. Etkinliğe katılıp bu saatte kadar sonuna kadar bizi dinleyen ve bekleyenlere ayrıca teşekkürler. Umarım faydalı olmuştur. Sorularınız, talepleriniz, demo talepleri, test talepleriyle alakalı yine bize başvurabilirsiniz. Ben bizim satış tarafının grup mail adresini vereyim. cs@profen.com ceyhansamsun@profen.com. Buraya maillerinizi atabilirsiniz taleplerinizle ilgili. Test, demo, özellikle bu internet üzerinden yayın aktarımları ya da başka yeni teknolojiler, mevcutta burada anlatılan özelliklerle alakalı denemek istediğiniz hususlar olursa cevaplamaktan memnuniyet duyarız. Yakın zamanda yeni test ekipmanları da gelecek elimize. Taleplerinizi alırız ve bir takvim içerisinde sizlere cevap vereceğiz. Tekrar teşekkürler. Kendinize iyi bakın bir sonraki etkinliğe kadar. Hoşça kalın diyorum. Thank you, Naila. Thank you, Matt, for today.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, Profen.
Yeah, it was grateful and beneficial.
Hope to see you all face to face next time.
Yeah, hope so. I hope so, hopefully.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay. Teşekkürler.
Bye.
Herkese iyi günler.
Bye bye.